When I thought I couldn't find my way out, yeah, I searched the God in me to find my way out. I know it can seem way out, but the Creator flows to and through me from way out. I'm talking way out, yeah. See, if you believe in the God in you, it's a better place. Creating the force and the power to live a better. Just know that love and joy and peace is one and all of the same space. That you were chosen just like God. Your energy. That's right. Only you can make the change. Shine your head at your shine so bright from darkness to light. From darkness to light. Yeah. And you'll find your way out. Oh, it won't seem way out. The power of God will flow through you from way out.
Welcome. This is Alchemizing Energy, and I'm your host, DJ Genesis. Today, we have a conversation that I believe is both historic and incredibly timely. Every year, millions of people look into economic forecasts, political analysts, and trend reports to try to understand where the world is headed. But within the Ifa tradition, there's another way of looking ahead through divination and the wisdom of the sacred Odus. Last week, for the first time in the United States history, a gathering of respected Ifa elders and diviners across the country came together to cast an Odu specifically for the United States. The result was Otura Meji. At the same time, the World Odu of the Year, Osa Meji, offers guidance not just for one nation, but for humanity as a whole. Our guest today is uniquely qualified to discuss both. Dr. Oloye Ayele Kumari originated the United States Odu of the Year initiative, bringing elders together around a common purpose of seeking divine guidance for the nation. Today, she'll explain why this effort was necessary, how it came about, and what these powerful Odus reveal about the challenges and opportunities facing us in this year ahead. We'll discuss the deeper meaning of Otura Meji, including an important story connected to the Odu that was omitted from the published document, a story with striking relevance to issues that we see today involving women, human trafficking, sexual abuse, and abuse of power. We'll also explore Osa Meji, the World Odu of the Year, and what its message means for women, families, communities, spiritual practitioners, and the world at large. Finally, we'll examine what has already begun to manifest in days since these Odus were cast, and what lessons we should be all paying attention to moving forward. Whether you're a lifelong student of Ifa or this is your very first introduction to the tradition, today's discussion is designed to provide insight, context, and practical wisdom for navigating the times we're living in. Please welcome to Alchemizing Energy, Dr. Ayele Kumari. Welcome. So, let's get into it. You were the originator of the United States Odu. What first led you to feel that the United States needed its own Odu of the Year?
Well, we have a World Odu every year. So every year in Ile Ife or in Ekiti, a World Odu is pulled that gives people and the Ifa Orisha adherents guidance on the year, guidance on how we need to move, got warnings on what we need to avoid, potential pitfalls, things of that nature. So there's a general guidance for the world, and that it becomes the overall theme of the globe, of the planet. And we do that every year, and people take to it. But part of what led to the Odu of the Year for the United States was essentially that we are going through a lot here, and that while the World Odu applies, there are specific and unique situations and issues that we need to address here in the United States. We, in many ways, are under siege, especially because of the current administration and the laws that are being passed. There were all kinds of things, and civil rights and equal rights, things that our ancestors fought for that were at risk and that had already been undermined. And so I got a message spiritually. You need to do this. That we don't have time to wait anymore. And one of the messages is that we needed to do this because you don't want to go back to the farm. Now, the farm can mean many things, but in this case, and what was implied in that was the plantation. It was alluding to going back into a state of oppression on a much greater level. The other message that came when I continued to push forward in terms of, well, why do we need to do this? And they were like, you need to do the Ebo, so we don't become the Ebo. And so that was really what pushed it. It wasn't something that I really had thought about for a long time. It was just, it came out because the need was there and we needed to address the need. And it was a pressing need. So I began the mission of connecting the elders, or at least putting it out there, and asking those who were elders, those who were long time adherents, especially, to come and join in this effort, to give their support in this effort, because they've been around for a long time. One, they've been around. Some of the elders have been here since the 70s, early 70s, and so on. And many of us that are practicing today don't even know them, but they have been there and they're still there and they're still working. And they have years of experience. So in a tradition where eldership is honored, they needed to be brought forth. These are the old heads, the OGs, the old birds, if you will, that have been steady in our tradition and laid the foundation, especially for us in the United States. In the United States, we have a building tradition and so on, and it's important that we recognize who came before, and we get their guidance and their ideas about how to move forward. So bringing the elders together was important, and so we did that, and one by one, each was like, yep, we need to do that, and I'm on board, and yep, we need to do that, and I'm on board. So it was really a grassroots effort. I wasn't sure who was going to respond and who wasn't. I reached out to those that I could. There was a time crunch, so I couldn't reach out to everyone. I wasn't able to. We spread out as much as we could, but we got a set of elders and a comprehensive set of elders from multiple lineages. It was important that we have multiple lineages, because there's so many lineages here, and sometimes we're too divided. But the one thing was for certain: regardless of what lineage you claim, if you live here in the United States, if there are certain, when a law is passed, they don't care what Ile you're in, they don't care what lineage, they don't care if you're Lukumi, Sheshe, Candomblé, they don't care. It's going to apply to all of us. It's going to impact all of us. So it was important to make this across the lineages, and make this available to anyone who wanted to participate, because we all are affected. The idea was this: that we overcome the division, in at least so that we can focus on a common greater issue that we all face. So that was the point of it. The other thing was that we didn't want it to be specific to a particular Ile, or a particular thing. So because that also becomes isolating. It wasn't about that. It was just a grassroots effort to bring together a coalition of elders who were focused on the common things. Elders and Awo diviners who had been doing this. We opened it up to those who were not just Babalawos and Ianifas. We opened it up to Odorishas, because often their voice is not heard. We opened it up to those who have been doing this work for quite some time, who have some experience in this work, and who have been influential in guiding many, many people. So that was very, very important. That's how it all came together. I gathered people. We established a date we would meet. When we met, we established the date that we would do it. We would do it on the full moon. We would do it at dawn. We, established what guidelines we're going to work under, and so on. We determined the Awo awos who were going to do the both the divination as well as the bow. We asked Ifa. It wasn't a matter of a preference or a choice. It was who Orumila chose. Orumila chose Aluwo Ifakola de Jason Edwards as the diviner for that. The initial person who was doing the bow was not able to do so. So the next one that was going to do it was Bale Shangowale Ajala. So he did the bow for it. These are all things that Orumila chose. We went with it. It wasn't about personal egos. It wasn't about personal identity, people you had issues with, beef with, none of that. And the beautiful thing was that we had zero issues. The things that were most concerning, there would be people arguing and so on. We had none of that. Every single elder brought nothing but grace and wisdom. They moved respectfully with one another as a unit. They contributed as they could and when they could, and it was a powerful happening. So that's how it came together.
So when you talk about if you don't do the offering, you become the offering, the Ebo. How important is Ebo in this situation? Like, why isn't Ebo important to a reading or anything?
Well, you have to look at the Ifa divination is not like tarot or any of those things where you're just doing predictions, right? Ifa and in Erendilogun, our tradition itself, when you go for a consultation, it's going to identify the issues, the potential issues surrounding you, the potential future, the potential pitfalls. All of those things are there. Some are going to be more challenging than others, right? But I look at that particular divination as like a diagnosis, right? When you go to the doctor, if there is something going on, especially there is a diagnosis. This is what is wrong, right? That diagnosis by itself doesn't fix the problem. You have to get a prescription. Then you take out you do the prescription, and it is the prescription that is designed to fill the problem. Ebo is the prescription. Ebo is, you have a spiritual diagnosis, and then you have a spiritual prescription. That prescription can indicate issues such as behavior patterns that need to change, or well, let me start with the divination itself can talk about where there might be violations, where there might be challenges, and those things. The Ebo is going to tell about what attitude you might need to have, what things you need to avoid, things you need to do. You might have baths, you might have soaps, there might be other things. Whatever that prescription is calling for is what is necessary to bring the potential blessings that came out of that divination, right? Or to prevent the potential pitfalls and issues that could come up. So just like some vitamins are preventative, some ebos are preventative, some are prophylactic. They'll protect you from those things. But the importance of the ebo is that important. It's not just predicting your future or predicting, dot. It's, hey, this is the situation. If you want it to manifest, or if there's a blessing that you see one, you need to do that ebo. These are the things, the steps you need to take to make it happen. If you see, or if there's something that is something you don't want to happen, you need to do the ebo to prevent that. When we do the ebo, we are securing the spiritual forces involved in creation. We're securing the energies. It can be from nature, it can be ancestors, it can be Egbe, your spiritual comrades. It can be from any number of places depending on what the divination says, but you're drawing in the spiritual forces to help you to fulfill that particular thing or to prevent that particular thing. Is very important. So when you get a divination for Ifa, when you get a divination for Erendilogun, you need to know the divination is not all of it. Without that, nothing may happen, or the worst can happen, or you might have blessings, but it may not be to the degree that you could have. A lot of times that becomes the challenge. So But that's the importance of the above.
So for those people that are new to Ifa, what does it mean when an Odu is pulled for a country or for the United States or for what is that Odu for? What does that mean?
It's the same thing. When we pull the dafa, we're identifying the potential issues, the themes, and the potential challenges, the potential happenings over that next year. So the Ifa New Year doesn't begin in January, it begins in June. In ancient times, it was based on the star systems, and that became the new year, and so on. So it pretty much identifies the potential things the world is. And when we're doing a World Odu, it's the potential things the world are going to do. If there are leaders, how that's going to show up in certain leaders. It may not be everybody, but it covers everyone. Some more than others, some to some extent more than others, but you begin to see how it manifests over time, and how it will show up. It might show up differently in different countries, different leaders, different people. You also have those ilays and things of that nature, or individual temples, churches and mosques. It can show up anywhere. So it can cover everyone just to different degrees, but it gives us a heads up. Hey, this is what's coming down the pipe. Here's what you need to look out for. Here's what you need to avoid. This is what you need to do to make things happen and to move forward and to receive the blessings that are potentially available.
All right. So this year's Odu came out, Otura Meji. What is the core message of Otura Meji, the Odu for this year, for the United States? And what does Otura Meji reveal about the spiritual condition of America right now?
So Otura Meji, for the United States, let me start with at least addressing how it came down, because we pulled the Odu, but we also did a survey beforehand, and that survey was to give us some context, some meaning of things that were concerning us. So in that survey, we put a broad survey out. Some of the things that came down that people were most concerned about, in the tradition at least, was the division, the ego tripping in the tradition, the division between lineages. People are seeking unity. They're seeking to, squash some of the lineage beefs that are constantly occurring. Many people feel that it's necessary, but what it does is it undermines the confidence and the faith of the people and the adherents, because it leaves you constantly in limbo. And there is value. We have to realize there's value in every lineage, in every form, and how they show up. We gotta understand it's bigger than one particular lineage. But that was a big concern. The second concern was the overarching crises we find ourselves in, and finding ourselves in political threat. People wanted protection from political assaults, from the administrative assaults, from people in power in general. People were very, very concerned about that. The third thing is that people wanted more economic stability, more cooperation, and working together with like mutual benefit societies and that kind of thing. People wanted to, how do we work together? How do we build? So those are the key things that we discussed just before the divination. Once the divination was pulled, Otura Meji came. Now, Otura Meji speaks directly to those things, those concerns, because Otura Meji overall, it's asking us, how do we move to a place of peace? How do we move to a place of love? How do we move to a place of coolness and balance, right? It does not necessarily mean we already have it, right? The fact that it was pulled means that there are these issues that are preventing that, and this is what you need to do to get it. So Otura Meji is saying there is a need for cooperation. There is a need for cool heads, cool minds, cool hearts, cool mouths. And what that means is that ultimately people need to start checking themselves. Let's start there. Self-regulation, emotional self-regulation. That's a big one, because a lot of the taboos that are coming forth in Otura, they're not big taboos in terms of don't eat this or that. They're like, stop arguing, stop dividing yourself, stop engaging in arguments, in fights, in conflicts, develop some self-control. Work on your own inner mind and how you see things. Open yourself up to bigger perspectives and larger perspectives than just your own. Recognize and honor the humanity in human beings, the human rights that are inherent. It's saying that the taboos are, it's not just about you, right? Stop making it just about you, relieving yourself of selfishness in that regard. Otura being cool means that. That means when we're dealing with conflicts, right, the need to solve the conflicts is going to require a cool state, not a argumentative, not a conflict, not a battle, not a war. The way that we overcome the issues that we're having is through coolness, not heat, right? So many of us, we find ourselves in a conflict, and the interest is the motivation is to fight. Want to fight? How do we fight? How do we get that? And it's saying the mission is not to fight in the way you think it is. The mission is to fight with wisdom. The mission is to stand on wisdom. Use your mind and use your divine wise intelligence to get you to the goal. Don't use your fist. Don't use overt aggression. Don't use insults. Don't use those types of things that will only continue to exacerbate the condition and continue the conflict. You have to do the things to stop the conflict. And so Otura Meji, above all else, that's what it's really saying. It's saying it in many ways because it speaks about how to manage different types of conflicts. And in doing so, you can achieve your aim. Sometimes and the way that we're achieving it is not necessarily going to be the way you think, right? If I had to look at Otura Meji in terms of our own history, and recognizing some things, some people may disagree, but I look at this as a World Odu, right? If there were an icon that spoke about that represented Otura Meji, an American icon, it would be Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King took a passive approach, took a laid-back approach, but it was the momentum of people coming together that helped to overcome the legislation that was necessary to protect everyone, that secured our equal rights, right? Peace, but in a way, not passive peace as in letting people walk all over you, right? An active peace with a mission to stay in the light and keep the light ahead and focus on the light and let the light pierce the darkness, pierce the problems, right? And trusting that. And that's very difficult. That's very, very difficult these days because when you're dealing with direct and overt aggression, that is something that is difficult to do. People now, we're like, I'm not the one. We're not that. I hear some people saying we're not our ancestors. We're not, because many of our ancestors had an immense amount of discipline, emotional self-control, focus, and that is what was necessary. Our ancestors could only achieve what they did through working together, through unity, through coming together. We cannot win this, and nothing we've ever done, nothing we've ever achieved legislatively in our country, we've done by ourselves or in a small group of people. It took masses, it took groups of people. And so that is why the same thing that got us here is part of the ways that we need to go about moving forward. It doesn't mean doing the exact things, because we've also learned some lessons. We've also learned some fundamental lessons in moving forward that we probably don't need to do again. But the general move forward, Otura Meji is saying, we still have to move in a place of wisdom. There are particular stories that come about that speak of the wisdom. And you can see, the more of the Odu itself later on, and there's a document that will lead to downloading the Odu, so you can get it there for Otura Meji for the United States. But one of the things I will say is one of the lessons had to do with a couple of proverbs or advices that Olodumare gave Orunmila. The first advice was that when you come to a river, if you're traveling, you're coming to a river and that river is overflowing, that river is raging, don't try to cross it. It's simple, seems like common sense, right? But in this particular case, the people he was traveling with, one tried to cross it, they drowned and they died, right? Another one was that when the wind is blowing hard, don't seek shelter from a tree, right? Because trees will, if you've ever been in strong winds, they can become uprooted. They can break branches and things of that nature. So that was the second advice. And again, a woman that was traveling, one of the people decided they were going to stand under the tree when there was a big wind, branch fell down. That was the end of that. They're gone. Both times when they left, their wealth was left. So Orunmila ended up acquiring both of their wealths. The third one had to do with when you get angry, when you see something, don't jump to conclusions. Don't project through fear, through your own whatever, what you think might be happening. Thoroughly investigate, right? Investigate. Be cool. Look at all sides, because jumping to conclusions can make you do things you will regret. They can do things to actually harm you instead of move you forward. In this particular case, Orunmila coming home, he had been gone for many years, about 17, give or take years, 16, 17 years. He comes to his home finally, and he sees what appears to be a adult-sized male there, and he's with his wife, and he's like, oh no, hell no, let me wait, what? But Orunmila remembered the wisdom. Don't jump to conclusion. Let me go investigate. So he ended up presenting himself to his wife. And when he presented himself to his wife, she was happy to see him. And then she introduced the seemingly adult was his son that she had just after he left. She was already pregnant. She had it. He had grown. He had been gone a long time, so he didn't recognize him. And had he jumped to conclusions, had he gone in with the machete because he saw what he saw and he know what he saw, had he done that, he would have killed his son. So these are some of the wisdoms that come through Otura Meji and that guide us. Don't jump to conclusions. So that applies to every one of us. When we're talking about crossing a river, rivers are sometimes emotions. Sometimes it means you have to be patient. You can't do everything that you want to do right now. Sometimes you got to be cool, right? Same with the wind. Sometimes you got to wait for things to be in the right time and in the right space to do what you want to do. If you try to do them too early, if you try to do them without looking around and paying attention, you will fail. Or you could at least create some real problems for yourself. So take the time to do that. Know, emotionally, because water can have to do with emotions. Work with your emotions. Wind can have to do with your mind and how you think. Look at your belief systems and so on. All of these things, there's levels to those metaphors that are very helpful if we meditate on them. In this particular one, Orunmila was asked to meditate on them each 1,000 days. Right, that's at least almost 3 years, right, for each one of them before he moved on. So these are things. Look at how you and in yourself might be looking or might be encountering rivers that are not ready to cross, or rivers that are ready to cross. Look at where you're finding shelter, where you're finding your security. Everything that looks and everyone that looks to be safe is not always safe. So look at where you're finding security and shelter, and recognize that they might be a tree you lean on, but they may not have the stability necessary to help protect you for real. And in the end, you can hurt yourself. These are those wisdoms. That's one of those.
That's beautiful, man. I love the stories of the Odu because they have such a beautiful, like, poetic aspect to them. You did mention that it came out. There's light and there's dark. So whenever an Odu comes out, it has a forecast of either it's in light or in darkness. So what is the difference between I guess it would be called EB or EB or E-Ray? E-Ray or
So,
EB?
in Isheshe, we don't really say EB, but we do say E-Ray, which is good fortune. And we say Ayewo, which means it requires further investigation. So we don't particularly say EB because some lineages considered it to be cursing on the mat. So we don't do that. We want to investigate. Okay, what's going on? And how we translate that is that, for me and my own understanding of Odus, all of them lead to the good. What you have to do is some are more favorable than others. Some you're closer to your destination than others, right? And so when you're further away from your destination, there's more stuff you might have to do to get there, but you can still get to the blessing. So the idea is always, whether it's in Iray, in this case for Otura Meji, it was an Iray. It was an Iray for Aiku, which is longevity, long life. We'll live on. We'll keep moving. We'll keep, forward to the future.
That's important because people want to catastrophe. It's easy to look at the social media and think that the end is near. The end is nigh.
This is it's all a movement. There's always something. Now we will find that that somebody keeps calling me. We will find that.
Man, it is. Listen, it's a Mercury retrograde. People were calling me back to back. So,
Okay.
but it's okay.
We will find there's always change, right? And change doesn't necessarily mean that it's the end. It might mean the end of one thing, but it's always the beginning of another. That's important even for Osa Meji, right? Because Osa Meji is fundamentally talking about also changes and shifts and so on. But when it comes to, you asked about, that particular thing, it is important to know it came out anyway. It does not mean it's guaranteed without work. All Odus require work. Life requires work in some form or another: inner work, outer work, spiritual work, mental work, emotional work, whatever work is necessary.
To maintain the E-Ray, right? Is it to maintain the good fortune, or is it
to maintain and to sometimes bring it fully forth? So let's say, for instance, you have $1 million that you can potentially get, right? It's going to require 3 different things that you have to do, right? So you do the first thing to get that. And that might be something as much as secure a bank account. Let's just say that. Secure a bank account, right? And then the next thing might be that you need to secure a job, right? Now you got this job, and this job has the potential to gain bonuses based on your progress, based on what it is that you are doing. You get an opportunity to do that. If you do a certain amount of work, then you get a certain amount. If you do a certain more amount of work, then you get another amount. Don't take that. I need that. Someone came in and took my stuff. But all what you make depends on the amount of work you do. It depends on the level of work you do. If you do everything that you're required, you'll get that $1 million. If you don't, I don't know about some jobs, but if you don't do that, then you might get some, but you may not get all of it. So it requires that you do degrees of work. It's not a guarantee. The guarantee is if you do the work, you'll get it. But it's not a guarantee without doing the work.
Is it like the odds are in your favor, but you got to go to the casino and throw the dice?
Odds are in your favor. The potential is there. You have the potential. The money's sitting there. All you got to do is do the work to get it. Right? The potential is there. The odds are in your favor, but you have to do it. Same thing. Somebody gets a reading. They want a job, right? I want a job, but then they don't do anything to actually go out and get the job. It might require that you have to go on an interview. It might require that you might have to dress up and maybe clean yourself up for the interview. It requires certain things for you to do in order for you to get it. The job is yours because you got the skills and so on, but you still have to do the work to get it. So that's life. That's absolutely life, right? Ire in this case means, hey, things will continue now, and things should be. If the work is done, then there will be peace. There will be things overcome. There will be blessings and so on. If the work is not done, then it's going to limit the degree to which that Ire can possibly show up.
Okay. And so, and you said Ire
Right.
came in
I want to emphasize
Oyeku, meaning like life. Because Oyeku mainly means like what, like change or whatever. So if it came in Ire,
Oyeku could mean the end of things, but it can mean the end of problems. Oyeku could mean double blessings, right? It depends on, the Odus are not stuck in one particular meaning. They have varied meanings depending on the person, depending on the situation. So you can get an Odu, two people can get the same Odu, and it will show up entirely different because they're different people. They have different destinies. They have different issues. They are different age, different place, different environment. There are many other mitigating circumstances that are there. So one Odu does not necessarily mean the same thing for everyone. That's why within every Odu, there are numerous scenarios and potential scenarios that may come up. One scenario, essay verse or pataki, might apply in that person's case, but it won't apply in the other. So another one might show up. So it's imperative that people understand Ifa is not it's not limited, nor is it what is the word, just confined to a small definition of each Odu is a universe in and of itself. Each Odu is a universe in and of itself. What it means is going to depend on the divination. It's going to depend on who's divining, their interpretation, your level of consciousness, the work that you do, and so on. It all depends on those things.
So when you say that it came in Ire, so Otura Meji in Ire in Iyeku, what is that exactly full thing like?
Oyeku.
Huh?
I didn't say in I didn't say in Oyeku. I didn't say it was in Ire and Oyeku.
Oh, okay. What was in Ire in? Like, I'm sorry, my bad. I want to make sure.
Oh, you mean Aiku? Aiku means long.
Yeah. Maybe I spelled it wrong. Aiku.
Okay. That's okay. Aiku. It means long.
How do I spell it?
Aiku. A-I-K-U. Yeah. Oyeku is different. That's another Odu.
Oh, okay. And Aiku. Okay, so long life. So Ire in long life. So okay, long so life, good fortune and long life. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Progress. Yes.
Okay, so describe what that, because I thought it was Oyeku. My bad.
So it's okay. That's why we communicate.
That's why I thought it was change. Okay, all right. So Aiku, that means good fortune and long life. Everything is gonna be if you just
well, because it's the United States, things are gonna continue, right? It's not the destruction of the world, it's not the destruction of the United States, nor is it the destruction of the community, right? Things will continue to progress. Things can bring longevity, because the opposite of not having long life is short life, and we don't want that, right? We don't.
Short life is Iyeku, right?
Short life means you're not gonna live as long. You could have blessings, but you're not gonna live as long. It means the destruction, and so it can mean the destruction or the end of things, and so on. So that it's saying in Ayeku, it's saying, hey, blessings are upon us. We can continue to go, progress, and so forth. We need to do the work to ensure that. We need to do the work to collectively to ensure that blessing is ours.
So the next question is that how does this like the story connect to women?
So that particular story connects to everyone. So there is, I think you're talking about the one that we discussed about. There was one that had to do with women and it didn't get put in the document just because I was doing too much, doing too many things. I was trying to be the moderator and trying to be the facilitator and so on and so forth. But there is a particular story that is different from the one that I just spoke about that is also in Otura Meji. And that particular story is about Orunmila and his wife, Oshun Fumilayo. In this particular story, Oshun Fumilayo is considered to be very beautiful. Everyone loves her. She is sweet. She is loving. She's wise, and so on. And as such, when you have a sweet, beautiful, loving woman, there are going to be people who desire her. So there were high officials who desired her, whether they were considered high elders or otherwise, they desired her. And their desires got the best of them. One day, Orunmila was going to be journeying to support another town and help another town for a while. So he had to leave his wife. When he left his wife, those men who desired her conspired to snatch her. They kidnapped her. They raped her. They beat her. They then knew they couldn't return her because there could be no witnesses of what had been done. And they knew Orunmila would take them out had he known. So they conspired to they debated whether or not they were going to kill her or whether they were going to sell her into slavery. They decided they would make a better profit by selling her into slavery. So they sold her into slavery down the river to a town where, they didn't expect that it would be found or she would be found. And then they decided to create a grave.
I think somebody called her on the phone. Man, let me tell you something. People are calling us on the phone. You know what I'm saying? They doing the most.
I don't know what just happened.
We get phones on the call. Phone. Did somebody call you or something? You either lost your picture.
I don't know. I'm back. Hold on.
Okay.
The browser lost the connection to the camera, and you have. So let me see. Am I still here or?
You're still here. I can still hear you. We just see the picture, your picture instead of like your face.
That I don't know how to get. Let's see. The camera is not. Okay. Don't know what happened.
Now it's black.
Now it's black for you. I can now see it. Can you see me?
No. Leave and come back real quick. Just like leave and come back. But right when we're getting done with that story was getting good too. Here we go. There you go. I see you now. All right. That story was getting good. You're a great storyteller, honey. Listen, that was like a blockbuster. I was like, what? Then what happened? I was
a movie.
On the edge of my seat. Like, what? He did what? All right, go ahead. We gotta back up a little bit. Okay, so all right.
So where do we leave?
Sean go leave. The men grab his wife and his kids too.
They grabbed his wife. They grabbed his wife. They raped her. They beat her. They tried to hide her. So they were trying to figure out what should we do. And one wanted to kill her, but then the other one was like, we can make a profit off of her if we sell her. So they sold her into slavery down the river.
Oshun.
It was Oshun Fumilayo was her name.
Wow.
This is Orunmila's wife. And when they did, they prepared a grave. Their mission was they were going to tell Orunmila that she died while he was gone, that they buried her, and here she is in the grave. So they prepared the grave for her. In doing so, when Orunmila returned, they told him, hey, your wife died. Here's the grave. We gave her a wonderful, funeral, etc. And Orunmila was grieved. Orunmila was hurt. He showed the grave. He trusted that that's what had happened. But, his heart wouldn't let it sit still. So he had to go to Ifa. He was like, why? I do too much. Why my wife? Why is this? Ifa said, your wife is not dead. Your wife is still very much alive. Do this ebo. You need to do an ebo. You need to get a big fish. You need to do an ebo to find her and to ensure that you will get her back. And when you do, it is imperative during this process, that you do not lose your temper, that you keep cool, right? And that you keep a balanced mind, and even that you forgive people who may have offended you. So this was the instruction of the oracle. So Omila sends his students out to go get a big fish. They head to the fishermen's to where the fishermen are. And in the process of securing the fish, they talked to a fisherman. That fisherman told them, or they talked about, someone missing. Have you seen this woman? She's looking this kind of way. And the fisherman said, yeah. And I do. I think overheard them saying she was going down the river to this particular town. So the people came back. They brought it to Orunmila. The fish was to be used as an ibori. That was to make sure that his head would be right? And that he would be flexible and so on. So he did the ibori, and then he went on his way to follow the directions that were given to him to find his wife. He found his wife. He brought her back. When they got back, he was hot, but he knew that he couldn't lose his temper and take it out. He had to figure out. She told him who did it, what happened, that these officials came, what they did to her, and so on. So he decided to try to use wisdom. He decided to have a feast. He didn't tell anyone that she had gotten back. He decided to have a feast, and when he had that feast, he invited all the high officials, the Oba of the land, all of the officials and the elders, everyone. And when everyone sat down, no one suspected anything. Most people thought, oh, he's grieving his wife, and this is an honor. He had her prepare kola nut, prepare gin, prepare sekete, prepare things for them. And he had her dressed up fine, come out and serve each one of them. So those people who were there, and the men who were there, who raped her, who beat her, who sold her in the state, they too were there. And they were at a loss because they were like, oh, I'm found out, right? So they didn't know how to respond. She served them gently, the kola nut and the gin and the sekete, which is beer. She showed them these things, and they immediately ran out. Everybody knew at that point what had happened. At that point, they knew that they were potentially going down. But not only that, because Orunmila had left his wife with these high officials, the town was at risk. So some stories change in terms of what happened. The Oba punished the gentleman, but part of the punishment was that they had to give them, they had to give Orunmila an immense amount of goods and so on, and immense amount of things, and ask for forgiveness. They would also be severely punished in other ways and so forth. So they had to do that in order to get peace, because they were afraid that Orunmila was going to tear up the whole town. So those men did that. They came, they bought many goats, they bought, kola nut, they bought many cowries, they bought all kinds of things to Orunmila, begging for Orunmila's forgiveness. And in doing so, I guess everybody's calling me today. In doing so, Orunmila became the ruler of the town, right? He became, they gave him that title, so he ended up owning the town. By keeping a cool head, the individuals were still punished, but they weren't executed. So that particular story was profound. That was profound to me when I came across it again, and I was like, wow, this is deep, because in this country, and even as a part of some of the prayers that we had talked about, some people brought up human trafficking, which is all just slavery. People talked about the abuse of women. They talked about the undermining of women, and particularly by men in power. So these things became very, very relevant because it's happening in the United States, and it's happening all over the world. But because this is, Odu is addressing the United States, it's specifically addressing people in the United States and the abuse of power. And that goes all the way from the abuse that happened from the Epstein files and the administration and the people in power to whether some in the community to some in the Ifa Orisha community, because there are some Babalawos who have abused women, who have mistreated women, who have undermined women. There was sexual abuse that was there. So it's dealing with all of these topics, sexual abuse and so on. And in doing so, Ifa is saying this is going to be addressed. This is going to be addressed, because this is not something that you can get away with and have prosperity and blessings in your life. So it's a warning. On one hand, it is a warning to men in power who abuse women. But because these Odus transcend gender in and of itself, this is about addressing abuse of power. This is about addressing the human trafficking and the rings and the things that come from that, because it's men and women, males and females, that are being trafficked. This is about addressing sexual abuse and sexual assault and uncontrolled desires and all of those things. This is about that and the need to address that as a community, that those who are doing that will suffer. Those who are doing that will be found out. They will have to account for those. The way that it was put was that the men in the Odu had to pay reparations, right? They had to pay reparations for what they had done. So this story brings it close to home in terms of how we address some of the women and the things that are happening. There will be reparations to pay. There is a spiritual debt that has been accumulated already that needs to be paid. How it shows up, how it's coming about, we don't know. But the other part of that, so that's one thing, they will be addressed. The other part of that, though, is the response. That we have to be, in addressing these abuses, we have to be cool and use wisdom. Anger is not just the only way to do it, because in doing so, it can inhibit your own blessings, even if it's righteous anger. It can inhibit your own blessings. It can stagnate you. It can hurt. It can hurt you in and of itself. So this particular Odu is very poignant in pointing those things out. Or at least this particular story is very poignant in pointing that out. It's a much longer story. There's within that story, there's a bigger story of elders and youth and so on. But that particular story, that aspect was what stood out to me, and that was what I wanted to reiterate.
You said that anger, even righteous anger. So even if you have the right to be angry, you still have to deal with it in a cool
Absolutely.
head.
That's called self-control, self-regulation, breathing. Right? That's why he needed to have that Ibori. He needed to get his head right beforehand, because unrighteous, I mean, even if it's righteous, you can start slaying stuff. You can start, in the end, he became the ruler of the town. In the end, she was secured. Yes, damages were done, but damages were also paid for. They had to pay reparations. That's equivalent to, hey, they might have gone to jail, but they also had to, they sued. They got, 10 million. You got, 20 million for your trauma and for what happened and so on. But in order to do that, you got to have coolness. It's just like somebody does that to your wife. You go back and now you've killed them, right? So now they're dead. There's no doubt about it. They're gone. But you're also now in jail. So now she still doesn't have you. There's no one to take care of the family and so on and so forth. Had you dealt with it in a cooler way, you could have had them prosecuted, put in jail, sued the family, got your money, and moved on. So it's a matter of learning how to address unjust situations and addressing them in a cool manner with wisdom and not just emotional reactivity.
You know what's so crazy is with this whole Carmelo Anthony trial, this is almost like you see it actually showing itself in real time.
It is. And that's a manifestation of it. That's one manifestation. When you see how these Odus show up from one manifestation to another, it's not the one thing that happens. It's how things happen over time, systematically, and so on. How do we deal with this in a wise manner? It's not about not dealing with it. It's not about being passive, but it's also not about, going out on the direct attack, right? Trying to fight the United States government, for instance, with guns is stupidity.
Thank you.
Right?
Wow.
We don't have the artillery. We don't have the manpower, the artillery. We don't have, odds are not in our favor to try to do that. Right? That's something that must be addressed with wisdom, with patience, with coolness, knowing what time it is, the timing, and things of that nature. Strategy. It has to be addressed in that way, and not necessarily with direct emotional reactivity. Emotional reactivity can not only destroy that person, it can destroy you.
So, what kind of a spiritual practice action? What practical actions should people be taking in response to Otura Meji? Also, like as far as even women, like what do you what should women specifically take from this USA Odu of the year? Uh, and then yeah, what kind of spiritual practice should we actually incorporate into our lives for this?
The first thing that I'm going to say is that it's beyond just necessarily women. In this particular, you asked about the spiritual practice. The one thing that everybody can do is some form of ibori, right? So that was one of the things. Ibori is when we all are born with ori, which is a divine aspect of ourselves. And it is ideal for us to be in alignment with that. That divine aspect guides our destiny. It guides our potential, our ability to fulfill our potential. It moves us forward. So our first orisha is our ori. That is the number one thing. So what do we do to get in alignment with that? Well, in this particular case, Orumila had to do a ibori with a fish. So you can do that.
What is an ibori? What is that for those who don't know?
Abori, thank you. An abori is the feeding of the head. It is the feeding and infusing the crown with certain energy. And each thing that you're feeding that crown with is a symbolic or energetic spiritual representation of something that you want to occur. So by giving certain offerings, I'll do it. By giving certain offerings to your head, it can create coolness. So one of the things that you can do is that you can use is shea butter, water, something cool, things that we consider cool, like ethylene and things of that nature. I always advise that people divine on what they should give, and that it's at first, if you're not a practitioner, is probably not a good idea to do it. One way, if you do want to learn how to do some things, my book, A Sheshe Spirituality Workbook, has two methods that you can perform Ibori with, right? And it teaches you how to do that and how to check that. So it's a little bit of a complicated process to discuss here, but not so much that you can't learn it. Everyone can do Ibori. Sometimes it's more effective and it's better if you have a priest do it. So there are some priests who may be able to do it for you. But if you don't have that, then the instructions can be found. You can look up IBORI. Maybe you'll find it online. I don't know. But once you do that, and I can't guarantee what you'll find if you find it online, I suggest you check with some type of priest that is in the Ifa Arisha tradition, someone who has experience, long-term experience there, not someone who just got initiated a couple of years ago and so on. But I would say that doing the Ibori is the number one spiritual practice that you can do to begin to be in alignment and to keep that cool head. Because that is what is required for the array, seeing things clearly and not just through the emotions. In terms of what that Odu means for women, it's the same thing. Now, women in and of themselves, that particular Odu, it is not saying anything specific to women, except that it is addressing things that often women encounter. It's addressing the sexual abuse. Because what we don't hear in that story is, Oshun Fumilaya, what happened with her, right? Now, she survived. She was able to, and she, I'm sure, look her look her as those who assaulted her in the eye, and she watched them suffer. Right? She didn't say anything more, but she watched how things went down. Know that when injustice is done to you, you might not always see it on the surface. It might not always appear, but it will be coming. Justice comes. It just doesn't always come in the way that you think it will. It doesn't always come in immediately, right? It requires, again, sometimes it comes over time, but it does come. That everything in this world, any debt that is created, it will be repaid one way or another. That's also a law that's found in Osa Meji, which is really the Odu for the year as well. That
Right. Now we were about to get into that. I was totally about to that was gonna be my next question. When we
yeah.
look at the World Odu Osa Meji, what is the major message for the world at large? Because we talked about the United States Odu and how that's going to affect us, but then you have Osa Meji coming out for the world. What is the major message with that?
So Osa Meji, again, Osa Meji is a very big one, specific to women, but not only women, right? Osa Meji is an Odu that speaks a lot of Iyami, and Iyami it can be loosely translated as the mothers, but there's layers to that. There's the cosmic mothers. There is the mothers that literally govern the universe, that stand next to Olodumare, that helped with the creation and the manifestation of the world itself. There is Iyami that shows up as our ancestral mothers. That means each of us every one of us that has a navel has a maternal line that goes all the way back to the first mother on this planet. That those are our ancestral mothers. There is Mother Earth that we stand on. That is the mother to everything. Nothing exists outside of Mother Earth in this material realm. That when we come here, when we're born, when we're incarnated, we are incarnating into her realm. We are guests here. We need to act right. This is her house. That's why she's called Ile. This is her house. So when we're dealing with that, we're dealing with the portals and the powers of creation, not just creation, because within the Yami, within the mothers, within every feminine tradition in the world, there are three aspects. There is the creation, the sustainers, and the ability to destroy. These are things that show up. This is the cycle of life. This is not necessarily good, bad, or otherwise. We will live if we're born here. While we're here, we're sustained here. When it's time to go home, we will leave here, right? And then over time, we'll come back here. It's a cycle. So this is the cycle of life itself. That is the power. As a result of that, it also alludes to change. There will be change. There will be shifts. There will be winds of change. Osa relates to water and movement and all those things that bring about change. Transcendence, evolving, all of those things are tied into that. So when it means for the world, there's going to be a lot of changes in the world. There will be women whose voices will be heard. There will be people and there will be women that will be dismissed, but they will have the answers. And so Osa Meji is saying, don't dismiss that girl. Don't dismiss that lady, because she's not what you think she's supposed to be, or that it's supposed to be a man. When I was planning the Odu for the United States, someone made a comment to me, well, why isn't there a council of Babalawos, doing this? And I was like, you're right. Why isn't there? What you have is me. And as a woman, this is what is happening. And, accept it, don't accept it. This is what needs to happen. But that particular individual was focused so much on why wasn't men and whatever projections they had on women, they were missing the whole point, right? And that happens a lot. In arrogance, we dismiss women. In Osa Meji, one of the things that it specifically talks about, and in Otura Meji, don't underestimate women. Don't underestimate how they show up in your life. That woman, it could be your mother, it could be your daughter, it could be your auntie, it could be your grandma, it could be the lady on the street, it could be the teacher, it could be the lady at the grocery store, it could be anyone, right? That's bringing wisdom. If one is wise, then one can at least stay open. If you prejudge, a woman based on anything, then you might miss a blessing in the process, right? So it's saying that don't prejudge any particular woman. Don't say it's got to be the woman that's all covered up, or the woman. It could be the woman that's in the bikini or whatever. She's just saying what she's saying, but she might have some wisdom there. So it's saying use your wisdom when it comes to that, right? Don't underestimate the women. But another thing that I want to add to that is recognizing even within men the feminine inside of them. And I don't mean that in an emasculating way. I mean that each of us carries water inside of us. Each of us carries a feminine or a coolness, because women are typically associated with coolness, water, and so on. We call it, there's Ako and Abo. Ako is a lot of aggression, more of an aggressive energy, more of an avert power, and so on. Abo is more of the coolness, the laid back. It's going about it. It can be the African equivalent. Ako and Abo can be the equivalent of yin and yang in Taoism. But in ours, we may call it Ako and Abo, and Ako, it begins how it's translated. It often is masculine and feminine. But we're going beyond gender and we're moving into energy, and the energy that one is carrying and the energy that one is manifesting in one's life. So within a lot of men, there is a need to live up to play this role of this hyper masculine energy that makes them ignore the other side, the cool side. They consider it weak. Oh, that's weak. That's what you hear. That's weak. Or if a man is manifesting that, oh, he's a simp. All kinds of things that undermine a man who might be sensitive to and receptive, to women, that might go about things differently. They're not living up to the role that society has said they have to do that. And as a result of that, both men and women suffer from it because they become trapped in having to fulfill. It's stressful having to fulfill and live up to a certain expectation because of that particular your gender, whatever it is that your sex assignment. That is difficult. This is beyond, and I'm not saying this in terms of a political thing, right? I'm not saying this in terms of that. What I'm saying is that it's important to be receptive at times. You don't always have to be in control of everything at times. It's important that when sometimes some will lead, and sometimes one should follow. And a wise person knows the difference when they need to be one or the other. That to spend your energy trying to fulfill a particular role just like that, just to look a certain way, to appear a certain way, especially if it's focused just on what will people think of me, right? That puts you in a trap, and it keeps you from being able to tap divine wisdom that might be coming through inside of you, because it doesn't show up in a certain container. It doesn't show up in a certain way. We have to transcend that. So for men, they have to tap their own feminine. It's okay to cry. It's okay to cry. Sometimes, and even, it's okay to be laid back. You don't always have to be on a show. And as women, because we're often raised in a society that we co-sign on it in some way. So we want respect, but we also co-sign on, oh, I don't respect him because he's too weak. He's too this. We also judge that, right? We judge when they show up that way. So we all have to take a look at how we're showing up and how we're processing masculine and feminine energy. There's a time and a place for everything. And in this society, especially when we're living in the United States, there's a time for everything. There's a time to be cool. There's a time to push forward. There's a time to be balanced in both of them, to recognize two things can exist. You can be balanced, right? You can be receptive and still make affirming choices and steps to move you where you need to go, right? So that's a big thing with the feminine part, is transcending the idea of what those roles are supposed to look like, and freeing ourselves, because Osa Meji It always represents change, but it's releasing what no longer serves you. If what you're doing is serving you, then so be it. But when what you're doing is no longer serving you, but it's undermining you, it's hurting you, it's sabotaging you, it's keeping you from getting to the blessing you need to get to. It's interfering in your relationships. It's keeping you from the money you're trying to make. It's keeping you from the customers, the clients, whatever that is that undermines you, it needs to go. And sometimes, especially when you're called to grow, when you're called to evolve, it means you have to let go of that which is no longer serving you. Unfortunately, we don't always know what's no longer serving us. We like to stay with what is comfortable. And that's what kind of creates the discomfort when change must happen. So when you're going through changes, and the world is going to be going through a lot of changes and so on, some of it will be uncomfortable. Some of it will be uncomfortable because it will look like loss. And sometimes what is lost is actually a rebirth. So we have to know there's always change. Change is, if you live long enough, things are going to change. But as they change, it doesn't mean the end. It means you're moving to another cycle, a higher cycle. And that is the way that the world is. It's not a linear up and down. It is a circle and a cycle. And we just go higher and higher up the cycle.
Honestly, you've been answering this question the entire time about what prayers, offerings, character corrections, or lifestyle changes are recommended from these Odus. You've been answering that the entire time, and I've been trying to keep notes and just show that to the audience. Is there any specific things that people can do? I'm gonna say this. On social media, they have these things. They have these communities: the red pill community, the incel community, the pink pill, the blue pill, the black pill. And it has created a divide between men and women. Do you see that could possibly change in the future based on this Odu?
Well, it could, but as I said in the beginning, it's going to take inner work. First, you have to recognize it's a problem, right? And the roots of that problem is deep. Some of those roots are definitely, when we have those things, we're dealing with difficulty with understanding the place and the position of feminine energy. Right? So we start off with our relationships and our first relationships, our relationships with our mothers and our relationships with our fathers, whether they were there, whether they weren't there, how they might have interacted with each other, or how our parents interacted with other people of the opposite sex. That sets a certain belief system and ideal about who the opposite sex is and what they're supposed to represent. We got to revamp that. It requires every single thing in terms of growth is going to require that you reevaluate what you've been taught, whether it's relevant, what things need to stay, what things need to go, and know why. Right? Recognizing what have you internalized that's working for you and what's not working for you. So it requires, in order for you to really grow, this is the feminine part. It requires inner self-reflection, right? It requires receptivity, to be receptive to that which is not working, to be able to admit that, right? And that means if your relationships aren't working, if they haven't been working, release the need to blame the opposite sex, right? Every single person that we encounter is a teacher for us, and we are a teacher for them. And they're going to teach you sometimes how to be, how not to be, what to do and what not to do, right? But when we look at each other, rather than look at the opposite person or whoever as the challenge, the villain, the antagonist, look at them as your mirror. See them as your mirror and begin to see what is it that, where is my real gripe with them? And then how am I manifesting that core gripe in me? How is it showing up? That's a big one. Another one may be, what am I hearing and encountering over and over and over again that I have dismissed, that I'm not open to, that I think all of them are wrong, right? We were at 10 people. I've been in 10 relationships. Everybody said the same thing. All of them are wrong. The problem is them, right? when you are, it's requiring self-reflection. This is about the inner work again, right? The inner work. What in me needs to change in order to have, the blessings that I really want in my life, in order for my life to move forward. Everybody, fundamentally, there's not a person on this planet that doesn't want to be loved. The problem is you don't know what that looks like, how to get it, what it really actually is. And more importantly, we don't know how to love ourselves, right? And I don't mean loving ourselves from a position of ego. I mean learning how to accept you as you are, and not this image that you want to project or otherwise. All of these things go into how we evolve, because that's the real change. In order for us to have the relationships we want, move forward, we must evolve as individuals, as within the relationship, within families, and within our communities, within the nation, and within the world. We must evolve. So when you say what kind of things can we do, we got to start. I'll say, you can say it, find a therapist to see. You can find and not all therapists are the same. So if one doesn't work, find another one, right? But you can get a divination. What do I need to do to work on me in order to receive blessings and array in my life? That's one. And to be honest, I'm very familiar with many oracles. You can ask that question to just about any oracle, right? If you know tarot, start there. Ask, what do I need to do to be? What kind of person do I need to be? And it's not about the external things. It's about the internal work, right? Do I need to deal with my anger? Do I need to deal with the fact that deep down I got a resentment towards my mama because she never paid more attention? She never came to my games when I was, a child, because she was working or otherwise. That kind of thing. How we relate, even as women, to our fathers, whether they were there or not. We got to deal with our fears, because most of our responses and problems are fundamentally based on inner fears we have not addressed, or don't want to, or don't know how to address. We got to deal with our inner shadow, that part of us that we deny, that we ignore, and so on. That's the part that often is responsible for how we self-sabotage ourselves and undermine ourselves, right? By doing that kind of thing, we can do cleansing baths. We can do the Ibori meditation, fundamental meditation, just sitting and breathing with nothing else. Get off social media. Get off social media for a while and just sit and breathe. Fundamental. If you're going to pray, pray, but also take time to meditate, which is to listen. Once you said what you had to say to your Ori, to your creator, however you perceive it, sit and listen. If you don't know how to do that, journal. Just random journaling can also help. These are just things I'm trying to bring for people, regardless of if you're in this tradition or not, regardless of if you know or not, fundamental things that you can do to start doing the inner work necessary. Eventually, this year, I'll be coming out with a book on Ori inner work. So look out for that. And I think it'll probably be called the Book of Ori, but it will be a workbook to help people do the inner work, to help people start to do the inner work inside. So those are things that you can start with. If you talk to a priest, get with priests that have experience. And what I mean by experience, I mean people who have gone through some things and understand some things, so that they can help you understand some things inside of you, right? And when I say that, I mean that in terms of, how do I say that? There are many people who are initiated, but they don't have a lot of experience. They haven't worked out things within themselves yet. They're still doing that inner work. We all are. No one's perfect. So I don't want to allude to that at all. We all got work to do, right? But there are many who focus more on their image, than the inner parts of them that need to change, and therefore it's difficult for them to be able to help you. You can see it if they got chaos in their life, if they're constantly changing partners, if they're constantly doing different stuff, and their own lives aren't stable. That's not the priest you want to see. That's not the one that is ready to be there for you in the way that you need them to be. And it's not their fault. It's where they are. And you have to be wise enough to know I need to probably look in a different direction. So some will agree with that, some won't, but I'm just saying it because we can't afford to undermine ourselves with the wrong. Again, we're going back to when you see winds of change and so on that are going on in your life, don't stand under a tree that's weak, that can't hold you, right? Look for support that truly can help you. And
so
this one is your own Ori.
Shame. So what do you want people to understand about the seriousness of receiving due for the nation and for the world, or for the world? What is the importance of having these divinations occur? Why do you think that this is necessary?
Well, it's always nice to know what's ahead. If you are going somewhere, it's helpful to have a GPS. It's helpful to have a map. If you are trying to get from New York to California, but you don't have a map, you could end up in Belize, right? So what those Odus do is they give us a map. They give us a general GPS. They tell us where this right here, there's a pit stop right here, there's a stop sign right here. This is where you can get rest. This is where you can find peace. This is the potential issues. When you get in this area, you're going to encounter this thing. When you get to this is what you need to be doing in order to get out of that thing. It's a GPS system, spiritual GPS for how we move and are guided in our lives. And we're used to winging it, but it helps to have a little bit of guidance if you're moving forward, if you're going somewhere. So that's the importance of any Odu, really. Whether it's for the year, whether it's for you, for your life, as an individual, all of those things point to giving you clues and a general GPS, a map of how you can move forward and get to your destination.
And they said that Odu provides, we all have a destiny. Odu provides the roadmap on how to get to the destiny. And sometimes you're going to have things that might fall into place, and why just walk through the world blind and be like, okay, I'm going to just head to New York and just start walking.
Our elders, and this is across the board, our elders understood that when a child was born, when a child arrived on earth, that they had a mission. And our elders understood that by requiring that they get a divination. There were two things they did. They got a divination and they got a name. So the divination, right at birth, helped them to know why this child is here, how we as parents can help them to fulfill their destiny, we may not know all of their destiny, we'll have clues. But what, as parents, they need to do, what we can expect from this child. Is this child a warrior? Is this child a healer? Right? Is this child where we're moving towards? What are some of the potential pitfalls with this child? How can we guide them in a way that helps to support them fulfill their greatest potential? Right? Then they're given a name. That name also, whenever we invoke a name, it is a person's prayer, we call it, or it's an oriki. It is invoking a certain energy for that person. So ideally, if you have the potential goal, the incarnation objective that this person incarnated with, and then you have a name that corresponds, that constantly reminds them of this is why you're here, then it sends this child off and they have a better chance of getting to where they need to get to because they're constantly being reminded of such, right? Our ancestors understood that. That is the purpose of divination. That is the purpose of the guidance that we're given to give us that. So whether or not you're ever initiated, and I'm not one of those that believe you have to be initiated in order to find that. I don't believe everybody needs to be initiated. I believe that everyone needs to walk a spiritual path. I believe that everyone has an Ori. And because of that Ori, that you can get guidance. That Ori is always there, whether you know Orisha or not. My father is he is not in this tradition at all, and not ever going to probably be in this tradition. He is a Christian. And every morning he does an Ibori, his own version of it. He anoints his head with oil. He says his prayers. He does his whole communion thing and so on, and he says his prayers at dawn every morning for whatever. That's his form of Ibori, right? It's not necessarily confined, and that's what I mean by he's not ever going to call it Ibori. He's not ever going to call that, right? But he's still moving in that practice and honoring his head, his crown, and moving forward. And so we all could afford to do simple things like that. I have a YouTube channel with Ashe Soul Music, and it is Afro spiritual music, so it's kind of Orisha music. And so I have a whole album on Ori, right? Things that have to do with the Ori, and there's one particular one that's Ori Morning Prayer, which was really designed so that you could do it in the shower. You can play that, the Ori Morning Prayer, and do it in the shower. And you're saying, Ori, bless myself. And you're covering your head with water, and you're saying your prayers and so on. But regular ritual, regular prayer, meditation, inner contemplation, inner work, and so on. That's something that everyone needs to do. So you have Ashe Soul Org. On YouTube, it's the Ashe Soul Music. If you put in Ashe Soul Afro Spiritual Music in Google, it'll come up. And you just look for the Ori album, ORI. But those are just some ways. There are many other, ways that you can do it. That's just one way.
So I wanted to kind of get into this before we kind of go, because we're reaching the hour 30 mark. Before we left, divination is demonized in a lot of faith, and some of the people that might watch this might be Christian, and they don't probably understand why they might look at it as an evil thing, you're talking to negative evil spirits and things like that. What would you say to that?
I would say this, and I can speak to Christianity because I don't know as much about the Quran. What I know is that the Quran, at least from what I've heard, the Quran never speaks against divination, right? In fact, whether people realize it or not, even in Africa, many of people who are Ifa adherents actually are Muslim. People don't know that because we don't recognize the difference. What they do is they separate their religion from their culture. So they practice Ifa as a culture, and they practice their religion as their religion. Now, as it relates to Christianity, what I can say is that divination is in Christianity, right? If you look at Aaron was a priest in the Hebrew nation and so on, and he had on his breastplate what's called the Urim and Thummim, and that is a actual oracle. It is a oracle, a black stone and a white stone. It is used like Obi, right? It is a divination form. When Jesus, on the other side, Christianity and so on, Jesus literally casted lots to determine which disciple would go where. When you say casting lots, that's divination. It's very much divination. Divination is tapping into the divine and allowing the divine to guide you, right? So those that say it's not there, it is there. Those that say what you have are people who really, they hear messages, or they hear people interpret the Bible, but I clearly never read it. They don't really know what's in there, right? There's a lot that's in there. It's an esoteric book. It is, if you take it just for the history itself, you'll miss a significant lot. It's an esoteric book. They divine by the stars, right? They say, oh no, astrology is not about. Yes, it is. There's all kinds of references to stars and so on, because the stars can tell you what time it is. It can tell you when it's time to plant. It can tell you when it's time to harvest. It can tell you what kind of moon, what kind of energy. The eclipses tell you something. There's all kinds of things. Those are forms of divination. They're just different forms of divination. So people are going to accept, or they're not going to accept. It's not my job to convince. My job is just to show, hey, You might want to look at that. You might want to investigate that. It's up to them what they want to do with that.
You know, I was watching a video this morning where it was talking about the Yoruba language and how, like, what they specifically, there's not a lot of negative words in that language. Like, they specifically, like, they, instead of saying this, they'll say something to where it doesn't say something negative. You know what I'm saying? That there's so
consider it a curse.
Yeah. So can you speak to how people communicate? Because I think the English language can be very negative. And like I said,
it's called affirmation, speaking in an affirmative voice. Right? Speaking in an affirmative voice. For instance, if someone got a divination and their life was at risk, that Babalawo will not say you're going to die. That Babalawo will say, Ifa says you will live a long life if you do that, right? And that then will be, these are the conditions that you can overcome them. But they will never say it's considered a curse to say this particular thing. So it's learning how to speak in an affirmative manner, right? It's affirmative prayer, positive prayer. They don't beg. Well, some people now beg, please give me this, please give me that. They will say, you will have long life. You will have good things. The blessings will rain upon you. That you will be wealthy. That you will be healthy. That you will be whole. They say it in an affirmative manner, and that affirmation is taking your inner power and it is speaking to you in an affirmative way. It is activating that truth inside of you and activating that truth inside of them. So it's learning how to use the power of words, oral or full share, the power of words and so on, in a way that activates, that allows you to manifest. It's a means of manifesting truth, manifesting the things that you want. If you speak constantly negative about, oh, this is not going to happen, this always happens to me, these people are doing this to me, these people, it's going to affirm that, because your words has power. Sound has power. Before anything manifested on this earth, there was sound. And it, even in the Bible, in the beginning was the word, right? There was sound. So what you say is what activates what manifests. So you always want to speak in a positive manner, in an affirmative manner, and avoid or reduce significantly speaking in a negative manner, both about yourself, about what you want to do, where you're going, and so on. About others as well. About others as well. Because speaking negatively of others can be a curse to them, especially, let me clear that, because where we're talking about mothers, speaking to your children in a positive manner. If you say, oh, he bad, I never say your child, he's bad or they're bad or whatever. Speak life into your child, speak life into your relationship, speak life into your partner, speak life and good things and positive things. And that will begin to act, even if they're not functioning in that way. You do that, and you call on your own Ashe and the Ashe that walks with you to bring those things into manifestation. You affirm it. That's what that is really about.
So listen, this has been a great live stream. I mean, I've learned so much. And I want to end it on this speaking in affirmations, because I really think that is really what it all boils down to. Social media, if you it gives you what you want, and if you're constantly watching bad things and putting it into your mind, it's going to make you speak it and make you
really, absolutely. That's one thing that people don't realize. These algorithms sabotage you. The algorithms are set up to identify what you say, what you believe, and continually flood you with that. And in doing so, it doesn't bring you alternate perspective. So it limits your perspective, because you are more affirmed that everybody believes and thinks and sees things the way that you do and otherwise. But it also can put you in a negative loop of people who are constantly negative, and you're constantly looking at negative posts, and people who are victim consciousness and poverty consciousness and all kinds of conflict and chaos and so on. It's constantly reintroducing that in your mind, and it's your eyes are processing it and your mind is processing it faster than you can even digest it. So it's very important what you expose yourself to. Media, social media, it can work to your benefit. It can be a blessing, but it can also undermine you. And it's important, again, wisdom, knowing what is helping you and what is undermining you.
I was talking. I had to put that. I had to bring it up because because we talk about Otura Meji and having a cool head, but if you're constantly watching negative stuff, it's going to put this into your subconscious mind to where you might react to something in the wrong way because you're watching that. Listen, I could say because it gives you more of what you want. Listen to your conversation on the phone, and then you'll see yourself going through a whole scroll of just whatever you didn't say it. So be careful what you say around this phone because it's recording. This AI is running these phones, and what it's doing is put it into the algorithm, giving you a timeline of it and giving you more of that information. So be very careful about the words you speak around this black mirror of a phone, which is really a scrying device. You know what I'm saying? Next thing you know, you're
Very
watching.
important in Otura, because Otura Meji specifically talking about the words that you speak. So yeah, absolutely. Be careful what you say, how you say it, the tone. Sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Nonverbal language, all of those things also impact your life, your experience.
Man, this has been a beautiful stream. I've learned so much from you. Let's get some final words. I love you so much. First I want to direct people. I've been showing your sites the whole time. I want to tell people, listen, if you want to learn more, Ayele Kumari has her own school called Institute. You can learn about the EME that she spoke about. She has like a whole courses
It's
and
a
everything.
90-hour course on African women's traditions and EME. So it covers not just EME and Yoruba, it covers across the continent.
Right. Yeah. And she has her own website.
There's IFA courses, there's Orisha courses, and so on. So there's all kinds of things that are there.
Yes, definitely support her channel right there. She has books. She has the book called Ianifa and various other books. I mean, I think you have about how many books do you have out? Like
I think is it 4 or 5? I've got
4 or 5 books. If you want to get her books, you go to her website, ayelekumari.com. And get her books. If you want to book a session with her, I think she's probably still taking a few people. I'm not sure, but please go to her.
I don't take many. I take life and death situations and health situations. My husband tends to take a lot of the general EFI, DAFI, and so on, but my time just doesn't permit to take a lot of regular divinations. But life or death, if you've got a health crisis or things of that nature, I tend to take those on a case-by-case basis. And I do consultations. I will do consultations in general, mentoring and things of that nature.
And her website, Ashe Soul, that's her music. Her and her husband, they make
music, but the music is also named Ashe Soul.
Oh, okay, all right. So my bad. So
but you can get to the music from that website as well. You can get to most of my things from there.
So yes, please support those 3 sites. Please go get her books. Please go listen to her music. Please book sessions with her. She's a very she's a doctor. So that means that she's taken she's went all the way to the top with education on a lot of things. So it's not like a matter of a person just talking. Like she's went through the whole system of understanding and wrote books about it and papers, and that's dedication. So that shows a person is very dedicated to the cause. She created the Odu of the year. So and that was bringing people together. That's a beautiful thing. So without further ado, I want to give some final words. Thank you for coming to Alchemizing Energy. This was wonderful. And you're just a beautiful soul, and I appreciate you. And hopefully we'll be able to do some more of this in enlightening people on IFA. Thank you so much. And final words.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you and the work that you're doing.
Yes, final words. Let's get some final words.
Final words from me or from you?
From you.
Everything boils down to your inner work. And so we ask, and I am calling on the universe, each and every one of you and your Ori, to bring and rain down blessings on your life. For you to be able to look within to determine what needs to change, what can change, and how do you need to move in order to heal, elevate, evolve, and fulfill your greatest potential. May Olodumare bless you. May your ancestors stand with you and guide you. May your Egbe support you. May the Orisha surround you and love you and guide you as well. But most importantly, may you be open. May you be receptive to hear it. May you be receptive to live it. May you be willing to live it. And may you be willing to be what you were created to be before you even got here.
All right. Listen, Abaru Obuyo Oboshishe. I can't pronounce it. Abaru.
It's all right.
Abaru.
Aboshishe.
Worry Wolfun, right?
Those are yummy names, by the way. Just we'll talk about that some other time.
Much love, guys.
I say.
Just when I thought I couldn't find my way out, yeah, I searched the God in me to find my way out. I know it can seem way out, but the Creator flows to and through me from way out. I'm talking way out, yeah. See if you believe in the God in you, it's a better place.